Boards and booze, booze and boards, drinks and beers, fight some hordes. Drank too much, forgot our swords, ran back home, filled our gourds, got drunk again, sang some chords. Boards and booze and boards, with Mickey and Jeb. Hi everyone, booze and boards, Mickey and Jeb.
Go, it's Star Wars Day!
He just couldn't hold it in.
No.
He loves his Star Wars.
Yes, there it is.
So yeah, today is the Star Wars, the card game, the LCG. I just call it Star Wars LCG because that's what it is.
I call it too.
So we will be doing that. It's by Fantasy Flight Games. What is it? 2 players, right?
It is.
One of those where you just... I don't know. Is there a variant for...
There is a... one of the expansions lets you play multiple players. One person's the dark side and the other people are the light side. But it is an expansion. You can't do that right out of the box with this. And also, by one of my favorite designers, Eric Lang, was the designer on this game. You know, Blood Rage, the others, this.
Arcadia was, right?
Yeah, Chaos in the Old World. The list goes on and on. Yeah, he's just pretty solid. But I guess if you don't like him as a designer, maybe you won't like this. But it has a lot of unique things that we'll get into in just a minute. But again, today is the Star Wars LCG.
Yep. It's just going to be the core box that we're doing.
Yeah, just core box. We're not going to do any expansions. We're going to show you based on the 2 recommended starter decks, which in most of the cases, Fantasy Flight has you cut it down just a little bit, just to get the mechanics and things like that. There are enough cards and everything in the box to build tournament legal decks. So we will be playing with the reduced ones, but rest assured there is enough in the box to do it. And the other thing in Fantasy Flight fashion, that if you really want to get into it, they don't give you the maximum in the core set, so you would have to buy another one to have the maximum card count on everything. That's about it.
How long has this game been out?
I don't remember. It was...
Has it been? It's been over a couple of years, right?
Yeah,
they're on a few cycles.
They have quite a few cycles are out on this. I forget.
But I was just curious. But yeah, other than that, we will get to the components, the setup, gameplay explanation. We'll do a match. I think he's gonna want to be dark side because I think that's all I've ever played you against.
Well, you can be dark side if you want. You haven't played it before though.
Yeah, I'd probably lose then. So I think I'll stick with the lights. Ooh.
You just keep that red 5 to yourself.
Alright, so yep, we'll be back with the components. Alright, so we'll get into the components of the game. I guess we should start with the light side cards and dark side cards, which as you can see in front of you, we have the 2 decks. One is a blue back and one is a red back. So the light side is the blue, the dark side is the red. There are force cards that go with each side.
Light side force cards, dark side force cards. Dark side has Vader, the light side has Luke.
And there's only 3 of them, right? I don't think...
No, that's all you're allowed to have.
Next up is the tokens that come with the game. The first thing is the Balance of the Force token.
Yeah, this is the Balance of the Force token. Real quick, this is the light side. We'll get into how this works when we go over how to play. This is the dark side. Picture of the Death Star on the dark side, and I'm not exactly sure what that is. That's actually a picture of one of the cards in the game on the light side. So, a little more about that later.
Next up is the Death Star dial.
Death Star dial.
This one you had to assemble yourself when you buy the game. So.
And it just spins around. Basically, the objective of the dark side is to get this to 12.
Then there are the damage tokens, which
we have one in 3s. And they just plop on the card when you take damage.
Yeah, next up are the shield tokens.
Shield tokens just look like
shields.
Sci-fi shields, though.
And then the last thing are the focus tokens, right?
Yep, focus tokens. So basically, these are your focus tokens. They are the way you exhaust the cards in the game, or unready them, or whatever you want to call them. They don't necessarily use the tapping mechanism because I don't really know why. I guess because they can use that mechanism. Like, some of them let you do different things, and the unique thing about these and why the exhausting or tapping mechanism doesn't work as well in this game is because these can actually stack on a card.
Yeah.
So it can keep it exhausted longer. So anyways, it's kind of cool. And
next up are the affiliation cards.
And I'll give you 2 examples of affiliation cards. This is the Sith and the Jedi. So everybody has to have a specific affiliation. There are 6 total, right? 6 total, 3 for the dark side, 3 for the light side. Real quick, you have for the dark side, as I said, you have the Sith, you have the Imperial Navy, and you have Scum and Villainy. And for the light side, you have the Jedi, you have the Rebel Alliance, and you have Smugglers and Spies. To date, that's all there is. I don't think there'll be anything else, or at least not anytime soon. So that's it for oh no, one more thing, right?
Yeah, we have the objective sets.
Okay.
And this is kind of where deck building comes into play.
Right? Which is very unique from a lot of different games. And we'll go into more detail in just a minute. But an objective set is an objective which looks like this, and then all the cards that are related to the objective. And you're saying, Mickey, Jeb, how do you know which cards are related to that objective? So on the objective card, down in this corner, and I'm sure Jeb will put a nice pop-up so you can see, but it's numbered, and then it has 1 of 6, 2 of 6, 3 of 6.
Yep.
Right. All objective sets are 6 cards, including this one. So the objective is always the 1 of 6. And then if you look down on here, you'll see the same number, and then the 2 of or 3 of or whatever. So you always have 1 objective and then 5 cards that come behind it.
And then there are other cards in the deck. There's different types. There's the objective card, unit card, enhancement, event, affiliation, and fate. And we'll kind of like go over those as we go through an example of gameplay. We'll just point out the different types and how they are used in the game.
Alright, before we get into the actual mechanics of the game, let me just go over card parts real quick with you. I'll start with the objective card, because it's probably very simple. There's the affiliation, there's the name of the card, there's some characteristics. Yes, these bold characteristics will come into play. Other cards will reference something, and if it's in bold on another card, it's referring to that. This is a resource icon, so any card, not just these objective cards that have these resources, can be focused to use the resource, because there are units that have resources, so you can either use them as a unit or use them as a resource. And this is the ability of the card. This actually has an action that it can do, and some of the cards just have nothing and they have a lot of resources, or some of them have reactions, that type of thing. I won't get into the intricacies of the differences between an action, a reaction, an interrupt, and stuff like that. You can look it up in the rule book. It's pretty self-explanatory.
And then there's the amount of damage it can take.
Exactly. So that's basically the health of the card. All right. I'll go over one unit card. I'm going to use Yoda for the example because it has all of the icons on it. Let's start at the top here. This is the cost of the card. This is how many resources you have to pay to bring it in. Paying for a resource. Put it on a resource card. I have 1 in the pot now. Would have to get 2 more to get Yoda into play. Next part. These little dots going down the side. Those are force icons. They come into play in the edge battle and the force conflict resolution, or whatever it's called. This is the affiliation that it is. This one happens to be Jedi. This is what type of card it is. This is a unit. And like Jeb said on the other card, this is the health of the card. Over in this corner, it tells you what objective set it belongs to and which card of that objective set it is out of the 6 cards in the set. Here are the bold, what type of characteristics the card has. It is a character, and it is a force user. So anything that affects a character can affect this card. Anything that refers to a force user can affect this card. In the battle, the black border icons are always in effect. The white border icons are when you win an edge battle. We'll talk about the edge battle when we get into the overview of gameplay. This is a tactics icon. This is a unit damage icon. This is a blast damage icon. Tactics let you place focus tokens on your opponent's cards. Blast icons let you hit other units that your opponent has. And the blast damage lets you hit objectives. So you have to have those units in order to do those damages to those types of cards. And then, of course, there are the abilities down here, and they're self-explanatory when you read them.
And
so,
next to his name is the icon.
Oh yes, and this is where how you identify if a card's unique or not. This little star type of symbol means that this is a unique card, so there can only be one in the field of play at a time.
All right, so we will go into how to set up the game, which you kind of have to do to play the game, right?
The game, yeah.
All right, so the first thing you do in setup is select your force allegiance. Who is going to be the dark side, who's going to be the light side. In this example, Mickey is going to be the dark side, and I will be the light side. Next up is select and create your decks. You will use the pre-assembled, like recommended stuff, or you can do your own. Since this is the core set, we just went with one of the pre-assembled things, so it's grabbing the objective sets and creating the deck.
So what that means in terms of what's the difference, well, the starter decks have you select 8 objectives. The official deck size is a minimum of 10 objectives. There is no maximum, so basically the deck that you're going to play with is a minimum of 50 cards, meaning that if you have the minimum of 10, then you're going to have a pile of objectives that looks like this, and then your deck is going to be the 50 cards consisting of the cards that go with these objectives.
Alright, so the third thing is to select your affiliation cards. So what we do is just set them face down. Then the next thing is to set the balance of the force, which you grab the balance of the force token and it gets set to the light side. And is there a reason for that?
Yeah, because the dark side's always going to go first, so, and you'll see in just a minute as we explain some of the game, but this is a really important component. So the balance to start the game to make it fair is that this starts on the light side, but the dark side is going to take the first turn, so he'll have a chance to change that.
Alright. The next thing is to prepare your decks, and to do that you will remove all your objective cards from your deck.
So again, these are the objective cards, the ones that are horizontal. Yeah. Okay. And again, we're playing with the starters, so we have 8 of these. Normally you would have at least 10, so the minimum deck size, if you are paying attention, is your deck is a minimum of 50 cards in a real game. We only have 40.
And then after you separate them, you'll shuffle the 2 different decks. You'll have an objective deck and then your main deck. So I'm just going to move this here. So.
And this is so you can see, you're not going to actually, it's not, when you set up to play games by yourself, you're not going to have everything all squished like this, obviously.
Alright, after that is to prepare the tokens, which...
That's just set the shields and the focus tokens and the damage counters so that everybody can reach them. If you're playing with somebody that has the game, you're going to have a bag of stuff, they're going to have a bag of stuff. You might use your own, or you might share, but there's plenty, so you won't have to worry about it.
After that is the Prepare the Death Star dial. So
the Death Star dial is the dark side's responsibility. It gets set at 0, and it sits basically in front of him, so both players can see it.
after that is the select objective cards, and the way you do this is each player is going to look at the top 4 cards of their objective decks, select 3 of them, and place them face down. The 4th one will go to the bottom of the objective deck.
So you literally get to look at the cards. You get to decide which ones you want to play, and you're gonna put the other one on the bottom. These can sit. I'm gonna put mine like off to the side a little bit sideways, so I know those are my extra objective cards, and then I will lay out the 3 that I picked, just like Jeb has there.
Then you will draw your starting hands, which is 6 cards. So we're not going to back it up. If I didn't edit it well enough, at this point these were supposed to be face up. And that tells you your reserve, right? Your starting reserve?
It does, yes.
So we each draw our 6 cards.
In there. It's good. The starting hand's always 6.
Alright, so the starting hand is 6 cards, and then after that we are going to reveal our objectives. And it starts with the dark side revealing, and then the light side.
And revealing your objectives is just flipping these over. And when you first start, you're definitely going to want to read these. Unless you've been playing a really long time, people aren't going to know exactly what they do. And then there could be surprises anyways. So you're just going to flip it over. For instance, I have Black Squadron Assault. As an action, I can focus this objective to remove 1 focus token from a Black Squadron unit I control. My other one is Council of the Sith. As a reaction, after your opponent's turn begins, I get to draw 1 card. And Shadows of Dathomir. It has really no powers, but it's a 2 in terms of resources.
Alright, and I have Jedi Training. This objective contributes 1 Force icon to your side during the Force struggle. In You Must Go, reduce the cost of the first enhancement you play each turn by 1. And Last Minute Rescue, after you refresh, remove 1 damage from a target unit. And once those are revealed, I believe the game can start.
That's true. So, so anyways, in terms of actual gameplay, what happens is dark side goes first. So phase 1 is
the balance phase.
Okay, the balance phase. Okay, so what that means is we check this. This is the balance. I look at it. It's the dark side's turn. It's in the light side's favor. So I don't get to do anything. However, if the balance was with the dark side and it comes to my turn, the balance is with the dark side, I get to move the Death Star an extra space. Okay? At the beginning of the dark side's turn, he always gets to click the Death Star anyways. This is like a ticking time bomb. If the Force is in my favor, I get to click it twice instead of once. That's one of the reasons, like we told you, that it starts with the light side during the game, so that I don't get to start clicking this thing right away. So anyways.
But do you get 1 click?
I get 1 click, yeah.
Okay.
I always get 1 click.
Alright, so, and if it is the light side's turn, and it's in the light side, then the light side gets to deal 1 damage to a dark side objective.
Right. So if it goes back into Jeb's turn, what that means is he would get to take 1 of these damage and put it in any one of these cards. I guess this is probably a good point to tell you what the actual goal of the game is. Obviously it's to beat your opponent, but there's 2 different ways to do it. The light side has to take 3 of my objectives to win the game. The dark side has to get the Death Star to 12. Okay? So, as you can see, the more I can spin this, the better. And I want to keep Jeb from knocking these out. There's a value on these cards down in the left-hand corner on the health of the objective, I guess I'll call it. So if it gets that many damages, it gets destroyed.
Alright, so the next phase is the refresh phase, which is removing one focus token from each card. So since it's the first turn, Mickey really can't do it, but if, say he had some focus tokens out on the field,
and then there was cards out here or whatever,
he would be able to remove one from each card.
Right. So let's say that this card here has two of them. This refresh phase, I take 1, 1, and 1. And this is really important in this game. Okay? So that would be left over.
And then one thing to note is during the light side player's first turn, they skip this step. I guess that's one of the things to balance going first and whatnot, right? After you remove the focus tokens, you remove all shield tokens on your side, and then you refill any missing objectives. Right. So if I had destroyed one of Mickey's objectives and it got to his refresh phase on his next turn, he would draw one from his objective deck.
Right, so it doesn't automatically refill during the game, so your opponent, if you get something good, is at least going to have to wait a turn before he can start attacking it.
Alright, and after the refresh phase is the draw phase.
Alright.
And in this one, Mickey?
So in this phase, each player is allowed to discard a card from their hand and then draw up to their reserve value. Your reserve value is printed on your affiliation card down at the bottom. As far as I know, As far as I know, everything in the base set is 6. Now there are cards that manipulate those, but let's say I discard a card. Now I have 5 cards in my hand. I draw up to the reserve limit, and now I have a hand of 6 again. If I hadn't discarded, I would just skip that draw up to the reserve. And as you can see, as you play cards, you'll get to draw however many. This isn't a game of you get to draw 1 at the beginning of your turn.
Right.
You're always going to start with that many cards. It might seem a little ridiculous, but you'll see that it's very important also.
And then after the draw phase is the deployment phase, which you're able to play units and enhancements. Yep. And one quick thing is that each card that you play is considered an action, so it must be resolved before you do the next card. So I believe there's like timing and stuff like that can...
Yeah, the timing in this game can get a little crazy. There's a nice little chart in the book that shows you where the action phases are and things like that, but we won't worry too much about that at the beginning. So, what would happen at this point is I get start playing cards. So, for instance, I have this enhancement. You know, it's a good time to talk about the cards.
How to pay for them.
How to pay for them and what they look like. So, I'm going to play a Sith library. Okay? So, the Sith library has a cost of 1, which is in the upper left-hand corner. And to play that card, I would put it in front of me. I would grab a focus token, and I would use one of these to pay for it. All these little block piles down in the corner of your objective cards, and including your affiliation card, tell you how many resources they provide. This provides 1, this provides 1, this provides 1, this potentially provides up to 2. Okay? So, now how do you do that? Alright? That's 1. I place that on that card. I have 1 resource to spend at this point in time. Now this is in play. Notice that this card also has resource, so now I have extra resources. This is where you need to pay attention because this is kind of important. Let's say, and I can do this. Oh, this is also a neutral card. Notice that there is no affiliation here on this card. That means I can use anything to pay for it. When you start mixing decks together and or playing this card, in order to play this card, I have to use, it costs 3, so I have to use at least 1 Sith resource to pay for this card. So I could go 1, and then I could use this one, and then another one, or if I had 2 Sith libraries, I could use 2 Sith libraries and this one. I hope I'm not getting too confusing, but you do have to use at least one card that has a Sith symbol to pay for
the
card. Now, if I started mixing in and I had scum and villainy here, I would have to have at least an objective out here that's a scum and villainy objective to pay for those cards. Of course, this one's neutral, so I can use anything, so I would pay for it. It comes into play. There's no like summoning sickness or whatever you want to call it. I can use that resource right away. Now, if I were to pay for that with this card, this is now used for this entire turn. Just because it says 2, I used it to buy this card. This is done for this turn until I can take this off. This other resource is not floating around in the air, and I can put another one on to use it later, or just remember that it's there. This is a use it or lose it type of thing. So managing your resources properly is a big deal. Of course, if we switch cards and I wanted to play this, I could put this down. I could put 1 on this, and I have 2 resources, and 1 on this, and this comes into play. And I could put this into play with 1, and I'd still have 2 here, however.
You would put 2 focus tokens
I'm sorry, 2, yeah. 1, 2.
So if he paid for the 3, he would put 2 on the 2 resource one and 1 on the other one. So.
But the point I was trying to make is once you use this and pay for a card, you can't go back and pick up the other one later on.
Yeah, if an objective has a focus token on it, you cannot use it.
Right, it is not ready anymore, and it has to be ready to play the card. So I could do that, and if I had enough money, I could play Darth Vader. I'm going to put him down here, even though I don't have enough money.
Because Mickey cheats.
Because I cheat.
No,
well, actually, I do have
money.
enough money for Darth Vader. That makes Jeb sad. So I could put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I have Vader out. This is actually a pretty good example. Alright, so what's the next phase, Jeb? That's all I'm going to do for... if I had any enhancements, they usually attach to cards and things like that.
Yep.
The cards actually are very good in terms of telling you exactly how they work.
Yeah, enhancements attached to people or whatever, and then the events are like a one-up type thing. You play it.
They're like a spell card.
Yeah. Alright, the next thing is the conflict phase. And that is where the active player tries to destroy objectives. You engage one objective at a time, and the dark side on its first turn cannot declare engagements.
Okay, so I skipped this phase. And then, so since I'm skipping this phase, we won't show you any engagement yet because I'll let Jeb put a couple cards out.
Alright, after that phase is the force phase. So the first part is force commitment. The active player places force cards underneath units, and there is a limit of 3 because there's only 3 force cards.
Right, so, and this is optional. You have 3 force cards to use throughout the game. So I'm going to take a force card, and I'm going to attach it to Vader. So the term in the game is committed to the force. Vader is now committed to the force. Now what does that mean? Well, in the next stage it means something that we're going to get into, but it also means in terms of play, if it's committed to the force, now when I focus this card, like I did with these, if a unit's committed to the force, it has to put 2 down on it instead of 1, which you'll see in a minute when we go into a whole battle sequence, but just, I'll explain it again probably. Anyways.
And then after the player commits whoever to the force, there's a force struggle where each player adds force icons on their committed units, and they total up, and whoever has the most will flip the force token.
Balance of the force token.
Into their favor.
Right. So, at this point, I'm not going to commit anybody else because I don't have anybody else for one reason. So, I look at Vader and I say he's got 4. Jeb has nothing on the field yet. This switches to the dark side. So, as you can see, this was very well thought out on how they did it because it starts here, it almost forces the player.
Oh,
ha ha ha.
ouch.
It almost makes the dark side player really, really want to get something committed to the Force so that they can get this back in their favor. And now going into his turn, Jeb's really going to think about what he wants to do in terms of trying to get this back, because he doesn't want this dial moving any faster than it already does.
Right.
And so that pretty much wraps up the my turn for the initial turn.
Yeah. So then it would go over to me. So I will start with the balance phase. It's not light side, so nothing happens. The refresh phase, I don't have any tokens on my stuff, and I actually skip it since I'm the light side player, it's my first turn. No shield tokens, no missing objectives. Then I do the draw phase. So,
and you're probably wondering why that's the phase that Jeb skips. Well, if I had some kind of shenanigan cards that was able to knock a focus token on one of his objectives, he'd be short a resource.
Yeah, and that's important.
It is important, but there's no... I don't even think there's any of that kind of trickery in the base box. But in case you're wondering, that seems like a stupid phase. It's not really a stupid phase for him to skip if you can get some weird stuff to happen.
Yeah. All right, draw phase. I'm not going to discard a card, so I'm at my reserve value of 6 cards in my hand. So I go to my deployment phase. The first thing I'm going to do is pay 2. So I will grab 2 of these tokens and go 1, 2 to play Jedi in hiding.
Notice that he's using a Jedi resource and it's a Jedi card.
Yep.
We don't have anything mixed, so I just want to reiterate that a little bit, because you're not going to see the mixed affiliations in this game, but that's how the mechanic works.
All right, so the next thing I want to play is in what is it called? Enhancement card. Mm-hmm. And I have one in my hand called Shicho Training. Did I say that right? I'm butchering the Star Wars words. It says, enhance a Force user, and my Jedi in hiding is a Force user. It says, damage from enhanced units gun icon type may be divided among any number of participating enemy units. So this person has 2 guns, so I can divide those among enemy units with that enhancement on. And then that's it for what I'm playing during my deployment phase. So now we will go to the conflict phase. And this is where I can try to destroy one of my opponent's objectives. So I don't remember what they do, so I'm just going to say I'm attacking the top one. So
that's the one that irritated you the whole game last time.
And that's the one I should be destroying. So, alright, the first thing I do is I declare the objective. So I declared that top one.
So Jeb's going for this. That's how you start the thing. You have to declare which one you're going after. As a matter of rules, you can only go after each objective one time during your turn. So if he goes after this and he has more things out that he could attack with, he would have to go after something different. So it's not like you can hammer away over and over again on one particular objective. Yep. So he's declared this.
Alright, the next thing is I declare attackers. Mm-hmm. So I only have one person, so that's who's going to attack it.
If he had a field of characters or units or whatever, he could declare however many that he wanted. And we're really tight here, and we won't be when we show you an actual back and forth game, trying to do the rules with you right now. But you just kind of slide your card forward so that you know that they're participating. He would be slid forward. I'll keep mine back here for now, but that's Jeb's declaring that as an attacker. Now as the defender...
you get to declare any units you want to defend.
Great. And I am going to go ahead and declare Vader as a defender.
Alright, so the next thing is to fight an edge battle. And this is what decides who is going to go first.
And one of the most strategic and unique parts of this game. It's totally different from most... I don't think I've seen anything like it, so... Anyways.
Alright, so the first thing to do in an edge battle is to place edge cards. So the attacker gets to place a card from their hand face down in an edge stack, and then it alternates until both players pass. So I am going to move this over and say this is my edge stack, so I'll put one card face down, And now Mickey has the option to put one down.
I will also put a card
and
down.
then it comes back to me, and I'm going to say I pass.
Okay, I will also pass.
All right.
Now
so,
it's reveal.
Yep, we reveal the edge stacks. Both of them get revealed. Only fate cards and force icons count is what I have.
That's correct.
So flip it over. My thing has a 1, and Mickey has
Twist of Fate. Yay!
All right.
So I have a Fate card, and here's where these unique looking cards that aren't a character or anything else come to play. They're strictly for these edge battles, and this is really cool. So these cards have numbers up in the corner, and they resolve in number order from least to greatest. So number 1 goes first, number 2 goes second, back and forth depending on how big these edge stacks are between the players.
One quick thing, in case of a tie, it's decided by the attacker. So if Mickey put down a 2 and I put down a 2, then the attacker would.
Yeah, whoever's, and that could actually make a big difference depending on what it was. But anywho, so Jeb doesn't have any. I have one that's a 2. So I read what happens on mine. And this one says, cancel the edge battle and the card effects of all other fate cards just revealed. So this card cancels the entire thing. If he had fate cards on here that did stuff to me, they wouldn't go off. We discard everything and we start over.
Thanks, Mickey.
You're welcome. I just wanted to make sure they understood how these edge battles work.
Yeah. All right. Put that down.
And
I'll pass.
That one. I will pass too.
All right. We reveal. What does yours do? He has the...
Deal 1 damage to a target participating enemy unit.
So...
Jeff won the edge battle.
Yeah, his goes off by dealing a damage to a participating unit. He's going to choose the Jedi in hiding, so it gets a damage. However, the Jedi in hiding only has 1 hit point.
So he would die.
So
No, keep it out there. I want to explain what... They still don't understand everything this edge did. This is really important.
Okay.
Let's go over some of the stuff here. Alright, so I'm going to take that away because I really wanted to see, understand how... it's too bad Jeb didn't have anything because we could have done the back and forth. Yeah. So this one's a 6. So if Jeb had any fate cards that were 5 or lower, all of his that were 5 and lower would have gone off first. I have the only one, so it goes off, it resolves, and does its thing. However, let's say I didn't play that, and I played this guy. You remember, the cards are all we're doing is counting force tokens here. I have 2 force tokens. Jeb has 4 force tokens. He wins the edge battle.
Yep.
Why is that important? Well, because and these get discarded too. They don't go back in your hand. So this is another, you have to decide, is it worth, do I really need this edge battle? And sometimes you might really need it, and you might need to get rid of a card that you didn't want to get rid of.
Like I just tossed Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah. So, but what that does for him is, if you notice on many of the unit cards, so what happens here is some of these have a black background and some of these have the white background, okay? Anything with the black always happens. Anything with the white only happens if you won the edge battle. So right now, Jeb has all of his icons that are going to go off, and I only have the first 3 that are going to go off. And you get to go first if you won the edge battle. And that could be a big difference too, because if you can get rid of a unit that's going to cause you trouble before the other person does, you're going to be in good shape. So let's go over the icons here. Alright, so the guns. Those represent unit damage. The little blast are blast damage. And the last one, which looks like crosshairs, is called a tactics icon. Alright? So what that means is these guys, the guns, the unit damage, they do damage to units. So the cards in the game. The blast damage does the damage to the objectives. And the tactics ones place focus tokens. And here's where the rules start to get a little, well, once you've played it doesn't seem confusing. Just driving it might. So this damage can go on here. This damage can go on here. The blast damage only hits the one you're engaged with.
Yep.
The unit damage can only go to one participating unit in the battle. So even though I have two, both these damage go here. Yes, there are enhancement cards and things like that that let you start splitting that stuff up now. But the basic rule of the game is all the damage goes to one participating unit. And then these would go to the engaged objective. However, if the tactics card is in the game and goes off, you can place the tactic token anywhere on your opponent's board. Does not have to be participating.
You can even put it on an objective, not
an objective. You can put it on, yeah.
Okay. All right. So in this example, I won the edge battle, so I get to go first. And on my card is the gun, and the burst. And I get the burst because I won the edge battle. So what I'm going to do is put the 2 gun damage onto Darth Vader because that's the only unit participating in the battle with me. And then I get to do 1 damage to the objective that I am engaged with.
Just that. And then, so that would put a 1 on the one that he picked there.
Alright, and then I put the focus token on the person.
He actually did that when he started it. It's
okay.
like, I focused, it's called focusing to strike. So he focuses that to strike. He resolves everything on the card in order. He does get the blast token because he won the edge battle. The damage goes on Vader. Now it's Vader's turn. He gets to do the 2 damage. And his blast tokens do nothing because he's not the attacking character. So it's not like I get to randomly, just because I have the blast damage, I don't get to randomly pick one. Only the person attacking is engaging with an objective. So as a defensive player, your blast tokens mean absolutely nothing. Alright, so he dies.
And he gets a focus, right?
And I get 2 focus. Why do I get 2 focus, Jeb?
You get 2 focus because Darth Vader is that thing where he's committed to the Force.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm committed to the Force, so as I explained earlier, I have to put 2 focus token on any character that's committed to the Force when I focus them.
And then that's the end of the conflict phase. So because I don't have any other objectives or any other units to go for attacks.
Right. So he's not going to be able to commit anybody to the Force.
Yeah, so there's no Force phase for me.
Then it's going to come back to my side, and I am going to start the whole process over again with the refresh phase this time. And I take 1, 1, 1. Notice on this objective, I'm going to have to wait another turn to get it fully back. So when I take 1 off, 1 off. However, Darth Vader has a characteristic called Elite, and it says remove 1 additional focus token from this unit when you refresh. So just because he's committed to the Force, which kind of makes sense, he's Darth Vader, I get to take 2 off, and he's ready to play again.
All right, so that's about it for the gameplay, right?
Yeah, in a nutshell, that's pretty much it on how the gameplay goes. It's probably a game that I highly recommend you watch us go through a whole thing, because we are going to try to comment every time we do something, and you'll get the idea of how the game flows.
There's a couple things that we need to talk about real quick. If my attack went unopposed, then there is an extra damage that's placed on the objective.
Okay, and what that means is if Darth Vader hadn't, or if Jeb had been able to kill Darth Vader, or I decided not to defend with Darth Vader, that means that well, let's call it a blocker.
Yeah.
If there was nobody blocking the way, so to speak. That's what unopposed means. And he would get to put an extra damage on there. And it does count, even if I put something up there, just because it was up there at the beginning, if it's gone by the time you're checking for that, then it's unopposed. So if he could have killed Darth Vader, it's unopposed at the time you check, he gets the extra damage.
Another thing are shield tokens. So if Vader had a shield token on him, and I was shooting for 2 damage,
It hits the shield first.
Yep.
There are multiple things that give you shields during the game. One thing to note is the shields, during the refresh phase, the shields do come off.
Another thing are unique cards. They have a symbol next to their name. That means you can only have one of them on the field. And then actually I do have a note about mulligans. There is a mulligan, and you have to keep your the second hand after you mulligan.
That's what I thought. I was like looking for it.
And then the rule book has custom deck building, timing structures, and how to prepare decks, so you can check that stuff out. We won't go too into... Yeah, we're not going to go really into...
Just as a quick note on the timing, because it really can make a difference in this game. Anytime there's an action window, here's the basics of it. And there's a chart for when there's an action window. What happens is you do something, and it's an action window. Then it's your opponent's turn to respond to that action until everybody's done responding to that situation. So it's kind of like a stack in Magic in a little bit. But so like if Jeb put an event card down, if I had something that could stop it, of course I get to take that, and that everything resolves before you move on. But remember, everything has to thoroughly resolve before you can, block it or whatever. I hope I said that well. I mean, if you're used to those spell types of games, it's not real difficult, but this game does get into situations where it gets tricky.
Alright, so that's pretty much everything. We'll get into an actual game of Star Wars, and you can, like Mickey said, we'll talk about everything we do, so it should be pretty clear if you're trying to learn it. So we will be back in a second.